folks. We're gonna get started here. My name's Seth. Hopefully folks were able to introduce themselves in the chat. That's where we're gonna be mainly communicating today. So if you're here for the training that is called Using Forms to Grow and Know Your List, you are in the right place. As I shared in the chat, my name is Seth, pronouns he, him. I am with Action Network, and I'm coming to you from Cleveland, Ohio today. We have a really nice sized group. Really appreciate you all making time to join today's training. I will endeavor to be as careful with time as possible. We do have quite a bit to cover. So let's go ahead and get into it. For the purposes of this training, I see some few folks are kind of making their way in. So I'm gonna go ahead and admit you all. You'll note that you are on mute. This is not to take away or disempower you. It's simply to make sure that we do not have too much background noise. Like I said, if there are questions that do kind of bubble up, I will have periodic times that I'll be able to kind of scan that chat. Do not use the Q&A, use the chat to address those. But again, as there's much material to get over, we will mostly park those questions and come to those at the close of today's training. Welcome everyone. I see that folks are introducing themselves in the chat. So continue to do that. You never know who you might see along the long list of organizations that love to join us in the progressive work that we help to assist with here at Action Network. All right, so let's get into today's agenda. As you can see, we will be doing introductions. So we've kind of already started that. We'll talk a bit about why forms. So here in my role, in addition to doing support and help desk, I also head up training with some other partners here and colleagues. You might have done some training with OBED as well. But why forms? And I really believe that forms is one of the tools within the Action Network toolset that can be really powerful and viable for your program. So we'll focus in on that today. We'll go over some key terms and concepts, so that we all kind of have a shared language, so we're all on the same page and talking about the aspects of forms and how you could set those up and use them to help your program. And then we'll go over a training scenario. I really enjoy training scenarios. Oh, you said the pop-up for this being, I'm seeing I got a message at the pop-up. Oh, okay. All right, James, you said never mind. Okay, cool. So everyone should be able to be seeing the screen okay at this point. There should not be any noise or distractions. If you do hear some whining at some point, it's just my dog, so you can try to ignore that. But just give me some plus signs in the chat if everyone's seeing my slides correctly. And yes, always get the question about recordings afterwards. I'll get that out the way. Yes, Audrey, all of our trainings are made available to anyone that RSVPs. And also we do have a YouTube channel where a majority of our trainings are shared for folks to go back and look at on their own leisure. All right, so we'll go over key terms and concepts. We'll go over a training scenario. So we'll really kind of set the stage with some kind of like a real kind of hands-on training, which I like to do. And then we'll hop into the actual activity, and then we'll go over some, we'll save some time for some Q&A, hopefully, towards the end today. So how are we doing on time? Okay, we're at the 1:08 mark, so let's go ahead. So as I explained, we'll be talking about it from the perspective of a use case, and then I'll be switching away from slides, and we'll actually go into Action Network. So a little bit about myself and also Action Network as an organization. You may or may not be familiar. Assuming if you're joining today's training that you probably use Action Network or are pretty much familiar with it. The expectation is that today's training is that you've used Action Network email or maybe mobile messaging or maybe even our petitions, for example. Perhaps you've joined a demo or one of our monthly trainings that we have over data, email, or mobile messaging. So in this training, I'll operate from the position that you've seen Action Network before, and you kind of know what the digital organizing toolset has to offer. You probably are really aware that Action Network is the progressive movement's premier digital toolset, and that we're laser focused on digital organizing. So Action Squared, if you didn't know, we do have two tool sets that might be new to some folks. So Action Squared is a nonprofit. So we are a completely nonprofit, and our sole duty of folks that work here and also our leadership and our mission is to help progressive accomplish their mission. So there's the Action Network toolset, which we're training on today, which is a full digital suite of tools that focus on mass mobilizations. So mass mobilization, so if we have digital organizers on today's training, you are in the right spot, because we're going to be talking about kind of what I believe is a powerhouse tool, which is forms. And then we also have our Action Builder tool set, and it is a newer tool set, been around for a couple of years, and it's really built from the ground up for relational organizing and looking at leadership development over time. So it's really focused on building deep relationships that organizers need and that's required for progressive leadership and helping us to win campaigns. So Action Builder, if you want to learn more about that, you can go to actionbuilder.org to see that tool set there. And then again, ground rules. I know folks have lots of questions. We do have a limited amount of time, but I do ask that you please park any questions that you might have by adding it to the chat. I'll try to field those. I assure you many of the questions that you might have or that are on your mind will get answered. Pretty thorough about these trainings. And I will respect your time and plan to wrap this up within the next 50 minutes. So I definitely appreciate your attention as I demonstrate how to use forms to mobilize even more progressive activists. So let's go ahead and get into it. So, I mean, really, it's kind of like why forms. So I really kind of wanted to go over some of the key features of forms, which you probably saw in the invite. But some of the key features of forms and some of the reasons you might want to implement forms for your program, or maybe if you're using some other kind of form software, or you're currently importing information from one platform into Action Network, you already have access to Action Network, you really probably want to strongly consider, the functionality that's going to allow you to do surveys with conditional, so if and then statements. So for example, if someone answers that they would like to volunteer, you could serve them up with another question, perhaps when can you volunteer, and add some dates. So that type of functionality, believe it or not, is built into forms. If you want to do something as simple as just creating a sign up for a newsletter on your website and you want to embed it in the footer, for example, we'll go over that today as well. That's something you can do. And then standalone pages, actions, that's kind of a default built-in. And I'll show you how you can actually apply a custom wrapper to add your own branding to that page. You don't have to have a whole bunch of technical skill to be able to do that, but it actually creates that funnel that you might want to be looking for to kind of really point people to take that specific action. I think one of the most kind of key stats that is really great about Action Network is your ability to track that action taken or that action rate. So of the people that you're reaching out to, that you're helping to organize and your activists, who is actively engaging by actually signing your petitions, filling out your forms, completing a form in order to say they want to attend an event. We can look at that and we can track that information so that we can actually better know our folks that are on our list and continue to engage them in the ways that they are saying that are interesting and most helpful for them. And then lastly, being able to better understand action rates, again, as I mentioned, with source codes. So you can add a little piece of code at the end of a URL or a link that's going to actually show you, from where are the majority of the people coming, they're taking a certain action. So that's super helpful, again, in helping to understand more about the folks that you're organizing with. And again, I'll cover today about how to implement these for your program. All right, and hopefully I'm not getting ahead of myself. All right. So some key terms and concepts. I think I have one slide that's kind of out of order, but we'll keep it moving here. So key terms and concepts for today is, I want folks to really understand that forms are a type of action. So if you think of Action Network as a tool set itself, you can think of it as a makeup bag or an artist bag. As a digital organizer, you have the ability to kind of go in there and take what pieces that you need for your mobilizations for your program. Some programs might use petitions and letter campaigns or mobile messaging as their key anchor way of mobilization. It really depends on your activist, your community that you're working with. But forms are just another type of action. So all the functionality that you see from petitions, for example, where you can go in and manage that page, or letter campaigns, you can do the same thing with forms. So forms are a type of action. Fields, again, another kind of technical term, but fields are just where data is collected and stored. So, and then next, questions, which we'll go over today, are a type of custom fields that you can set up. With the forms, you can also create activist tags, so we can collect more information about activists. Using that tagging functionality, you may or may not be familiar with that, but we'll go over that as well. And then we can lastly use questions to create conditional statements. If you want to edit the form, which I'll show you, simply click on the edit form and you can use the visual form builder. So you don't have to know any code. It's literally a drag and drop builder that allows you to pull the different types of questions, whether it be an open field, a paragraph, a radio button. You can do that with the edit form. Key things to know as well is that email and country are required fields. So you might have noticed that, oh, I can't remove these. By default, when you when you create a form, those are going to be in there. If you try to remove them, you can't. As a digital organizing platform, those are two core fields that have to remain a part of your form. And then you also want to always add a call to action. So you'll notice that there's going to be a little visual editor along with the form. You want to give folks some information on why they should be filling this form out. People have many things to do within their day, and taking the time to fill out a form may not seem like a big ask on your end, but it is for many people. So we want to make a good call to action to say, what are the reasons why they will want to submit this form. And then lastly, you want to think about your people. One of the key aspects for digital organizing and organizing itself is really knowing the communities that you're working to organize. So how do they like to communicate? Do they prefer receiving a mobile message? Do they communicate mostly via social media? Is email a main way that you engage with folks? It really depends on your program, but knowing that will allow you to be creative in how you use forms and collect that information that's going to allow you to engage with their activists in a way that is more meaningful. All right, cool. So I finally got to the survey point. We're going to actually take a quick survey. You might notice this doggy from the form page. I'm going to drop a link into the chat, and we're going to do a quick survey. So if you do have access, I know some folks might be on their phones. It's mobile friendly. You can still do that, but you can go ahead and click on that link, and I'm going to give folks an opportunity to finish the survey. You also notice here I said you can obviously click the link on the form, link in the chat, excuse me, or text the word form to 612-261-0902 to take a mobile survey as well. So we have those two options. So I'm gonna give folks a moment to participate in the survey, and then we'll move on. So a brief survey, and actually you can kind of see what the survey looks like here. I called it Forms Training Quick Survey. And I want to know what interests you the most today about forms. Is it creating surveys in order to learn more? Is it creating sign-up forms to grow my list or grow your list? Is it embedding a form on your website? So you want that form that's going to send your information right back to your Action Network, right from your website? Do you like the idea of keeping all your data in one place with your activists and having those activist records be synced and uploaded, synced and updated dynamically? Or are there just too many to choose from today? And then below, I kind of have a little example of the custom HTML. So again, we're not going to get too much into coding today, but for folks that do have those resources and or time, you can use custom HTML to do a lot of different creative things with your form. So I'll give folks a couple minutes to respond to the survey here. And for folks that are looking for the survey, I dropped that link in the chat. It's the last link that was posted. And this is really helpful just from the aspect, even in training, we do utilize surveys from the forms for most of our trainings and some of our other kind of product feedback. in order to kind of learn more about you as partners and activists that use Action Network. And like I said, you can participate if you're on your phone. It might be easier. You can just text FORM, F-O-R-M, to 612-261-0902. So you kind of see how our text to take action works. That is actually a feature for mobile messaging. If you have that turned on or enabled, you can allow your activists to be able to sign up on a form or RSVP to an event by simply texting a keyword. Yes, Alma. Okay, that was the first time I tested using a doggy. We kind of have a love affair with dogs here at Action Network, so I'm glad to know that worked for someone as a prompt to go ahead and join. At minimum, we had good music and doggies here today. So a couple more minutes. Just want to make sure we can compile a little bit of data because we're going to be looking at it as a part of the training here today also. All right, thank you so much for your answer, for your folks that are able to submit their answers. Really appreciate it. Again, it's going to come in handy a little bit later on. Cool. All right, so let's go on to the fun part now. Let's talk about today's training scenario. So we're going to be talking about Action Neo. They are a newly established organization. They're made up of highly engaged leaders who have successfully mobilized hundreds of residents in their city. They have contact information for about a couple hundred people and are looking to grow their list. The group is an Action Network partner, and they've used petitions to pressure local decision makers to reverse course on several harmful pieces of legislation in their community. And they have a brand new website, and they would like to continue to grow their list and share more information with their activists. They also know it's important to understand their activists by surveying them, and lastly, partnering with other organizations to amplify their work collectively. So that's another thing we'll go over as well. So today we need to work to add a sign-up form to their website, and we also want to create a standalone page with a short survey about an event that they're going to be hosting, just collect some information about that. All right. So I'd love to give a recap of basically what we're going to be doing, because I'm going to move away from the presentation here. So that we have a little information about Action Neo. They have a cool new website. They have this cool new logo. They're really ready to start engaging with their activists and getting more activists to join within their progressive movement work. They'll be using forms. We'll be using forms to do that today. And I'm going to be moving over to my browser, as I mentioned. And we'll be doing a guided setup through these bullet points that I've put here. We'll endeavor, because this is going to be a live demo. So if I mess up, it's a learning experience together, but I promise that we'll get through it together. So today, as I mentioned, we'll need to locate the forms action in the Start Organizing menu. We will view our survey responses from a little bit earlier. We'll set up some tags and some questions, and we will again give a definition of what that means in the system. We will create and edit a new form. That's what everyone came to this training, I believe, for. We'll duplicate that form because, again, we want to have another standalone page. We'll embed the form that we publish on our new website, and then we will style that custom landing page where we want to collect that additional information on that link that we want to share. And then lastly, we'll talk about tracking. So we'll learn about source codes. As I mentioned, the source codes determine the origin of users who are doing something specific on your website. And you can determine what source resulted in more actions with this. And then we'll talk about joint actions. So that way of amplifying your efforts by joining forces with other organizations that are doing similar work. All right. All right, so I'm moving into Action Network. For our Action Network partners and users, this should look familiar. I'm on my group manage page. And from my group manage page, I do want to see the results of our survey that we just did. So this ribbon across the top is our start organizing menu. I can actually just click on actions. I'm going to go down to forms. If I were to click the plus sign, I'd be creating a brand new form, but I want to actually kind of see what that published form is doing. So I'm going to go over to the bullet list, click on that. And now it's going to take me to my list of forms that I already created. So here's the forms training survey. I'm going to click the manage button. And now I'm on the forms manage page. I named it forms training survey. I gave it the headline, just quick survey, quick and painless. And from here, I want to be able to see my form answers. So I want to see who has submitted an answer today, just because I'm interested on what you thought was most interesting to learn. And I can view the stats right from this page as well. Another key thing to know about Action Network too is many of your questions can be answered by hovering over these tooltip question marks. It gives you additional information about each area that that icon is present. So this training is about growing and knowing your list. So there are ways to track and understand the activists who support you so you can better support them. So with form answers, I'm going to click on that there, and I see the names and email addresses in those fields of folks that entered their information. So we had a few responses here. Oh, we've got quite a few. So I'm getting able to see kind of those fields that I set up in those responses. If I want to download this report, I can do it right from this page as well. So that's good to know. And also from this page along the right-hand side, we can see how many actions have been taken. I actually set up a goal of 30. I didn't think I would get that many participants, but thank you for finishing that. And we'll go over more of what this information means, but along the right-hand side, from when you publish the actual form or the actual action, you do have access to being able to grab your embed code and also see the share information as well. You can also see the keywords that I set up. So I did set up the keyword form. And again, if you have mobile messaging enabled, this is something that you can offer to your activists, and that's the ability to text in a keyword in order to take an action on something. So yeah, I wanted to view the stats and sources. So if I go back to stats, I'm able to see my various sources of where the websites where this is kind of referral is coming from. So that's definitely interesting. So I saw someone went to Action Builder and came back out. So that makes me feel kind of good because someone went over there. And then we'll talk a little bit about sources. I did add source tracking. So of the ones that did not have the forms training source code appended to the end, I had 6 actions, 2 for mobile. And then for the sake of the day's training, I wanted to add some source code to the end to understand, to make certain that using this link, I know that these are the folks that got the link, you got the link from me on today's training. So I see a majority did come from the link that I just dropped into the chat. But we'll come back to this. We're gonna go from the startup. How are we doing on time? All right, let's keep moving forward. So there are ways to track, as I mentioned. So let's talk a little bit about tags and custom questions. So I navigate back up to the Start Organizing menu, and I go over to Details. My first option is going to be Tags. If I click on the bulleted list, I'm going to see all the tags that I have created. Tags are attached to individual activists. Each activist can have as many tags as you want. Tags can be added to activists in various ways. Tags are useful for subdividing your group's list into different categories. So your group and action network, a lot of folks, this is a concept that we often have to kind of talk about because I've worked in email in digital organizing for many years, and I definitely understand the concept of uploading various lists and choosing this list, that list in order to create these subsets for these emails that we want to do. In Action Network, the nice thing is there's just one list. And there's many ways that you can actually subdivide your list, and tags is just one of those ways. So if I wanted to create a tag twofold, I can create a tag that's going to actually add a tag to an activist profile that participated or submitted the form. And I also can add a tag in order for someone to get that tagged information based upon if they answered a question. I can add a tag on that field as well, and we'll walk through that today as well. So I want to actually create a new tag now, and I want to call it June 2021 outreach. So I'll go ahead and create that tag. And you'll see it appears right here. So now after I create that tag, and I want to actually I want this to be appended onto folks for this event that I'm doing that's going to be hosted in the next couple of weeks for ActionNeo. So the next thing I want to do is go to questions, set up some questions. So I'm going to go back to the start organizing menu. It's the ribbon across the top of the page. And I'm going to go to details, click on that, and then go down to questions and custom fields. One thing to note here is that if you have the correct permissions, you can add ad hoc questions to the form builder by dragging blank questions from the left and adding the name. So basically, you don't have to go into this menu if you have the correct permissions to set these up, but I'm showing you and demonstrating how you can actually do that. I have access to be able to just kind of create those questions on the fly in the form builder, and I'll show you that method as well. So if I were to go in here, again, if I wanted to start new, I would click the plus button. If I wanted to see all of the ones that are already created, I would click the bulleted list. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I like to see what I have available. So I've already set up a couple of examples here. We actually created something that we're going to be using, and this is called a conditional example that I set up. And let's go ahead and click edit so we can look at what I did. So we're going to be adding a question all about transportation for ActionNeo, because ActionNeo is hosting an event and they want to make sure folks can get there. So we have some questions we have created a question about transportation. We're going to have some conditional questions that are going to be follow-up questions based upon how they answer. Do you have, oops, I have an error. Do you have transportation? Oh, do you have that was right. Do you have a transportation plan for our event? And then we have yes or no. So kind of explaining these labels here, which is really important to know. The administrative title, basically this is just an administrative title that's going to allow you and everyone else that's in your group to know what this is. And I just named it conditional example. It's not shown publicly. This is really important. The actual name of the field is super important. You want to give this, this shows up as the custom field or column when you are downloading your results. So you definitely want to make sure that you're using something that's recognizable. Don't use double quotes in this space. That's going to mess things up. And you definitely don't want to use more characters than 250. You're really not going to want to do that anyway. If you can use one word in keeping it as concise as possible, that would be my recommendation. This is going to be, again, the heading that's shown in the column when you download your results. It's also what you're going to be using to tell the form which question to serve up for your conditional questions, and we'll go over that as well. So this is just my label. A label is just what's the label for the actual form question. And then we have an optional label to pick from as a result of that. So do I want to say yes, or do I want to say no? And I see I have some questions flowing into the chat box. I will pause once we kind of get through this section. So I have this is filled out. One thing also to note is that editing a question will update its form. It's dynamic. So if you add something here, you change something here, it's going to be changed across the board wherever it is embedded or sitting as a standalone page. That update's going to happen. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pause really quickly here, and before we go into actually creating a new form, I see we have a few questions. Oops, I didn't want to stop share. So many. Zoom boxes. All right. I see the long question from Felipa. Thank you. This is probably the best option with that is to reach out to us at support@actionnetwork.org. Can't really do that right now in this training, but I see folks are coming to the rescue in the chat, so do appreciate that. James is asking about how to fully integrate AI into your WordPress site. What forms we are reviewing. So, yeah, well, we actually do have a widget for WordPress. Our knowledge base, all cameras are defaulted off. For folks, I apologize for that, but I think that's one of the things that's set up in our security settings right now. As long as everyone can see the screen, I hope that is doing people enough right now. But as far as folks that are using WordPress, we actually have an integration with WordPress, and you can basically go under support, go into the knowledge base, which is going to pull up our really extensive information as far as documentation. You can search for WordPress and locate that plugin information as well there. All right, I'm going to jump back into the demo here. Give me some plus signs. I want to make sure everyone can still see my screen. If you're able to see my screen and you're still here, please give me some pluses. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right, so let's get back into the training, and then we'll close with questions that folks might have as well. Hopefully this is helping folks out. So now we're going to actually create a form. And as I mentioned, we wanted to be able to create a form to embed into the website. And we also want to do a standalone page. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Actions. And I'm going to click on the plus sign because I want to create a new form. And I'm going to give it an administrative name. So this is going to be a name that's internally used. So I'm going to say Neo website form. And I want to give it a title. And I'm going to just call it Neo website form. You probably want to be a little bit more creative than I am, but this is, again, the demonstration. We can add a banner to our form page. And then again, as I mentioned, the call to action. So this is the visual editor here. So we want to add a call to action to let folks know why they should submit the form. So basically, I'm going to say, stay up to date with our events and stories from organizers like you. You have correct grammar, or try to at least. So then this is my call to action here. And now if I want to go ahead and we can see the default form here off to the right, we can turn on and off the progress bar. So the progress bar just basically shows or indicates how many people have actually completed the form. So it really just depends on what you want to do here. So I'm actually going to leave it on because I like to see how far we've made. So I can actually edit also my goal. So let's say we have a goal. We have 200 people on our list now. Perhaps we have a goal for our newsletter, our sign up form, and we want to get 100. We want to get 100 new folks. I'm going to add 100 as my new number. And now I want to give my form a heading. So this is something that's going to grab that attention. So I'm going to say get updates. Let me say get fun updates. All right. And then this is the default information. If I want to go ahead and edit my form, I need to click on this edit form button. And we often get questions about, the countries. I know folks are international. So this information on the country is going to be keyed off your browser information. So if you're in the US, it's going to be default in the US. And the same for if you're in another country, you're going to get defaulted into that country. And then once you fill a form and you come back, the page is cookied so that you be able to not have to deal with selecting a country again. So now at this point, we want to kind of decide what we want to have on this form. I think for this example, I want to, let's go ahead and get into the conditional content example because I don't want to run out of time. So here I want to have the first name, the last name. Again, I don't have to include that information. That's another kind of strategic piece that you might want to include. The great thing with Action Network over time is that you create that Action Network, the activist record, and that could be built up over time. So maybe we want to start with an email address, or we want to start with a mobile number, and we want to start building that profile over time. That is a possibility because people may or may not want to hand over their information, again, depending on how strong your call to action is. You can set up forms to have folks enter their information to download content. You could do it for recurring events. So let's say you have an event every Wednesday at a certain time. You can use forms in order to do that. So you can be collecting that information over time. You don't have to do it all at once. So what I'm going to do now is do an example of the conditional content here. So I want to go ahead and pick that example that I had. So again, this is the question library, and I have my conditional example. So now it's going to populate itself, and here it is. Do you have transportation plan? Do you have a transportation plan for our event? I'm going to drag and drop over here to the left. And now I'm going to get into the conditionals. So if I click here and I get into the box, we have the information here that's present. So required, if I was to click this, again, it's going to give me a little asterisk, and the person is not going to be able to submit the form unless they fill out this field. So I'm going to make it required. Always show. What does that mean? Always show. So by default, if an activist has a value for this field, it will be hidden. So if it's on there, if this value is already on their activist profile, because again, we want to know as much about our activists as possible without annoying them, essentially, or we want to respect that we know them and building this relationship. We will not show the field if they already exist. You can choose to always show it. It's an option. So then here we want to show, and this is where we get into conditional. This question will appear if the activist has a certain value for this field. The value just means the answer or the response. So if they respond yes, then we want to actually have that value here, and then we can serve them up a question. But since this is a leading question, yes or no, I don't have to add that information there, so I'm just going to click save. So what I want to do next is, and since I have permissions, I'm going to actually add another set of radio questions. So I'm going to drag these radio buttons over to the left and add my follow-up question. So I want to, if someone answers yes, I want to ask them if they would be okay with offering a ride. So I'm going to name this transportation offer. And the label that I want to add is going to be, can you offer others a ride? So it's good to read these tooltips here. It's one question per line, and they must be unique. You can't have the same question. You don't want to leave blank lines. Because blank lines will cause blank radio buttons, so they're not going to show up. Checking your radio button with the option 1, I won't go into this, but I'll just kind of go into my actual demo here. But this is definitely, if you ever get caught up here, you definitely want to reference the tooltip. It's going to give you the good information and give you the steps in case you forget the steps here today. But essentially, you're going to have this dummy text here. I want to get rid of this, and I'm going to add my responses. So the pipe is that vertical line. So this is a pipe. This yes here is what's going to show on the form. In this yes underscore offer is the custom field, what's going to be stored. This is what's going to be stored under the custom field. So this is the information that's important to the system. This is the information that's important to everyone else. And we need both of them in order for it to work. So now I want to make this required. And the name of the field that I set up, if you remember, was called transportation. So I need to add that here. And the value for the next question that I want to prompt would be yes offer. and hit save. Because I want to know if they can offer it, I want it to be stored. So then I want to add another question here. And this question is going to be about ride options. So we want to be able to offer ride options for our activist. And I named it ride options. And the label I'm going to put on this is, would you like a ride or a bus pass? So then for my buttons, I'm going to give them the option to say I want a ride, or they can say they want a bus pass. And the information that's going to be stored for I want a ride is want ride. So that's going to be appended to the individual. And on the reports that I export, I'm going to see want ride, or maybe they want a bus pass. And again, this is just an example. And I'm going to make this required. And again, I want this to only be shown if the following field name is transportation and if it has a value of no. So again, referring to that first question, do you have a ride? If no, then I want to offer them some ride options. Hit save. All right, let's moving forward for the sake of time. We're getting a little bit behind. I'm going to click Save Form. And now my form is done. I'm going to change this here. By default, it's going to say add your name. I'm going to say sign up, or maybe confirm sign up. I know we probably have some content experts out there that could give us some good CTAs or call to actions. So then once I edit my form, it's going to take me to my thank you page. So you must go through these steps of setup for forms or for any action before you can get to that action manage page. That's important to know. All right, so I'm going to say, I can change this here. I can say confirmed, which I always want to give them a kind of a success message to say that was completed correctly. And then here, by default, it's going to have this information to kind of support sharing that message. We can always remove sharing options if we don't want to share that. That's an option. And also, you cannot move forward until you fill this box out here. So after they take action, what are the special steps? So I would say add our email to your contacts and see you soon. So then I'm going to save and publish. I can always save it as a draft if you need to go through like a review, but I can just go ahead and save and publish. And now it's going to show as default as one action has been taken, only 99 out of 100 to go. And then in talking about tracking, we can actually look at our referrer code, which I'll get into as well. So now that I've published it, I'm on my form manage page, and I can do all types of stuff from the form manage page. So this should look familiar because we looked at this at the beginning of the demo, looking at the survey page. I can click on view form to view the form. So now that's going to open up. And now here I can see the actual form. So it's tagging me because I already filled it out. So I can just click to update that, and it's going to remove that ID. So now you'll see if I fill this again and I say yes. Oops. Okay, if I say no, I guess I did something wrong on the yes. But if I say no, it's going to ask me if I need a bus pass. So, or if I want to ride. So I'll click I want to ride and confirm that as a sign up. So now that information is going to be tagged to my activist record as someone that will want a ride to the event. So I would go back to edit the form to see what the mistake that I made. I'm sure maybe folks caught it, but I'm going to move on to talk a little bit about how we can add a custom look to the page. And that is with the wrappers. Really simple. If I want to make a wrapper, custom wrapper, again, I must be a partner to have access to that. I'm going to go to details, page wrappers, and that's where I'll be able to do that. You can generate your own page wrapper. It's really easy. I also created a wrapper for the example here. But if I wanted to create something, I could just do add new page wrapper, click auto generate page wrapper. I'm going to add an image here. I want white behind, and I want my accent colors to be that reddish color. So that's good. And then build wrapper. So now you have the code for the wrapper, and it's going to actually give you that kind of that look and feel that's going to give it that branding more close to your own organization. And actually, let me rename this one because I think I set this up prior. So let's see. Let's call this one Neo new wrapper. Hit save. And now I'm going to go back to my form that we just created together, and I'm going to give it a custom wrapper. And I do that from the manage page. So I'll hit manage. And now under page wrapper here, I'll click on my drop downs, and here's my Neo new wrapper. Hit save page wrapper. And now when I view my form, I have my page wrapped. And you can actually go into the code and change the font, add additional information for this wrapper, but now I've customized this page. I no longer have the Action Network ribbon on top. It's more so a standalone kind of landing page. Now we can actually funnel folks in, maybe have a specific ask here, maybe it's more of a standalone survey. You have lots of options here with the customized page. Next, I want to show you how you would embed the form. This is going to look like a little bit of a larger form, but basically, as I mentioned, off to the right here, we can embed the action. So I'm just going to copy this here. And I'm going to go over to my simple homepage example. So this is our make-believe new website for Action Neo. I have access to the back end to look at the code. I have a spot where I want to drop the form. So here, I want to embed the form here. I'm going to go ahead and find that in my code. So I can drop my code from Action Network right into my website. And you have the opportunity to customize that here, but this is what it looks like by default. Completely mobile optimized, so it's going to look good and shrink down depending on what kind of device the individual is on. It's kind of wide for my liking, so I could kind of go back in here and say, well, maybe I want it to be, 60% rather than 100% of the page. No major code expertise needed here, but essentially that is how you would embed it into your website. And again, if you're using something like WordPress, we have a WordPress plugin. Simply go to our knowledge base and search the word WordPress, and it's going to pull up all the information about that. I know that WordPress is probably one of the more popular, not probably, is the most popular platform out there. So we have a great integration with that. So if I wanted to embed this on my website, that's exactly how I do it. I'd simply go from my form manage page and embed that. So we've seen an example here of the custom branded page, and then with our wrapper, and we've seen how we've embedded that into our website. So those are the two ways that you can kind of use forms. You could actually use your partnership with Action Network to kind of host these mini pages, if you will, and stylize those to your branding or your liking. But then you can also just go ahead and embed the form. So if I just want to include something just like email and zip code, and I just want to do a small form, maybe in the footer of my website for my newsletter, maybe a call to action for that, that's where I would put that. I'll put that down here. All right, moving on. I know we've gone over time, so I hope folks are bearing with me. As I mentioned, we did have a lot to go over. So you did notice that I did add tracking if we wanted to add some tracking on the end of this form, it'd be easy as kind of using I'm gonna pop it up here into the actual browser window, but I would add question mark source equal June outreach virtual rally, for example. So now if I share this link, and it's gonna allow me to reload the page there, whoever had this is the source that would be showing on my stats page. So I'd be able to see when we shared this link for this form in June, or however long the source goes out, we know that it came from June, or whatever other example you want to use to be able to track. That's how you would use that to append. You don't do anything special other than add question mark source equals uh, whatever kind of tracking naming convention you want to use. But again, you want to keep it neat. You want to use some kind of dashes or underscores. So that's how you would utilize tracking. And then lastly, I want to talk about one of the unique features of Action Network is how easily you can work with other groups that are in Action Network. That's something that really kind of sets us apart. And again, off here to the right, we're seeing about the share action piece. So for example, anyone who clicks through from Facebook to the action and signs, or anyone that clicks through from Facebook to the form and signs the form, for example, or submits it, it's added to your list, and also the creator of the form as well. You don't even have to get in touch with the person that created the form, and you automatically get credit for the activists you bring in. So that's pretty easy. So the way that you will retrieve your code, again, is from the page and drop down. So if I wanted to share this with another group, I'd be able to pull my refer code into my personal list right from this area over here off to the right. So that's another way to kind of build your list more by sharing common interests with groups and collaborating. So when an activist clicks on the link with that code attached, your referrer code, by default, unless the activist changes their subscription or unsubscribes, they'll be added to your personal email list or that group's list. So I can actually build two groups at once. And the actions creator email list at the same time when they make that one action. So I want to actually share this with other lists. I can use my refer code to track that information. You can also pull your direct link off here, this page as well. So if I had to share anything, the magic does happen from the form manage page. It's going to be where you can pull a lot of this information and edit information, edit the form itself, view the form itself, grab your referrer codes, add keywords. So we see keywords here. If I wanted to add that keyword, I can't add that word keyword form because we already used that in my group. But if I wanted to add something like, I don't know, Neo, I can add that as a keyword as well. Oops, I already have that. All right. All that information would live here. All right, I'm gonna hop back over to my presentation. I really do appreciate y'all hanging with me. Forms, I am really excited to present the information about it. This has been recorded. Anyone that RSVP'd will be able to get a copy of today's recording. I definitely urge you, if you are currently using Forms and you have questions or issues, reach out to the support. If you're not using Forms, give it a try. There's a lot of flexibility that can really help you to be able to have all your information on your activists in one place. It really mitigates the need to have to do things like multiple uploads. It really helps you to grow that one singular list of activists the Action Network is all about. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and try to field my chat as best as I can. If you don't have any questions, feel free to go ahead and sign off. So Gail asked, can you put the form in an email? No, you cannot put a form in an email. Email does not allow you to do that. Yep, Moti, I didn't have to put the questions in the question bank. I could have just written them there, but I wanted to show folks both ways. Nate asked, do the values have to be unique within the form? Yes, definitely. They need to be unique. That's the only way that the system can identify what is what. All right, I see there's some self-help in the chat. I appreciate those who were able to answer some of these questions on the fly. Again, you will be receive a recording. How do you generate a referrer code? So yeah, Modi went over that. That's from your form manage page off to the left-hand side. There's a little drop down right underneath the social media referrer. Are there options for displaying forms in multiple languages? Oh, that's a great question. Or do you need to have separate form links for each language? Well, as we know from by default, well, you can actually do that language conversion with custom coding. Reach out to support on info on that. But the easiest method would be probably what you mentioned as far as like creating multiple forms, because you can actually choose, select which language you would like to have as a default there. I have sent the links of the web pages within an email to activists. Yes. So yeah, so once you create any action, and we're talking about forms today, you can share that link with your list via email, text, what have you, and be able to share that information. All right, I think we've gone over. We actually have the demo coming up with Obed. If you want to get a general demo of Action Network, stay on. But thank you everyone for talking. And Kay, just really quickly, the keywords that has to do with our mobile messaging program. So you can actually, if you have mobile messaging enabled on Action Network, you can set up a keyword so that people can text a keyword like help to your, not help, that's not a good example. They could text fun to your mobile number and be added to your list. They can text to take action. And we actually have a training on that. You can check that out on the YouTube channel. All right, thanks everyone for joining. I'm signing off. Bye-bye.